What is up, everybody? This is your guy Cly, and it's time for a little DIY. And today, I'm going to be showing you how to make a switch puller for mechanical keyboards. Because while there are many on the market, personally, I'm not a fan of any of them, especially not this one, though these other two also have their flaws. And while I really want to go into a rant about that right now, for brevity's sake, let's go ahead and get these out of the way and talk about what you're going to need for this project. For your materials, what you're going to need is a set of scissor-handled tweezers, and for your tools, you're going to need a set of pliers. And that's everything. And I really suggest using a set of locking pliers for this, because while it is possible with a regular set of pliers, in fact, in testing, I did manage to make one using my chainmail pliers, but it really kicked my butt. When I made the switch over to locking pliers, things went a whole heck of a lot smoother. Let's just talk a little bit in depth about the type of tweezers you're going to need, because not all scissor-handled tweezers are created equal. What you're really going to want to do is go for the cheapest scissor-handled tweezers you can get your hands on. And I don't just mean as a cost-saving measure. You're going to want this metal to be flexible enough to bend, but at the same time, you're not going to want one that's going to deflect easily. This is actually why I suggest going with the locking pliers, because a standard set of pliers that doesn't apply constant pressure is going to make bending this metal very difficult, even if you go for the cheapest. The next benefit when it comes to this specific style of scissor-handled tweezer is the fact that the arms are pretty thin up towards the tip, which is where we're going to be doing most of our bending. Not only is this going to help in the bending, but this thinner profile is going to allow you to get into all kinds of narrow spaces so that you don't have to take off each and every keycap around the switch you want to get to, and you can even get the edge switches on recessed cases. And finally, you're going to want some with a flat tip, no slanted tip, because a slanted tip is going to make engaging the locking tabs on a switch a lot more difficult. With all that said, don't worry. I'm going to go ahead and post an affiliate link to the exact tweezers I bought for this video down in the description below. You can either get the straight-handled version or the angled version. Also, for the pliers that you use for this project, be they locking or non, you're definitely going to want to go for some that have a bit of a flat surface in order to reduce the amount of tool marks you're going to be leaving on the metal. Now let's get to bending. The first bend we're going to make is right at about the halfway point on the gripping pad, assuming you're using the same tweezers that I am. So go ahead and lock that into your pliers and give it a bend of about 45 degrees, give or take a few, trying to get the bend as even as possible on both sides. You might need to reposition your pliers once or twice in order to make sure everything's aligned. Once you have the first bend finished, go ahead and flip over your tweezers and do the other side. Don't forget to compare both sides while doing your work to make sure everything stays even. Once you've finished bending the front portion of both arms, we're going to move on to the second bend. And that's going to be where the arm meets the grabbing pad. Go ahead and lock that into your pliers, making sure not to apply so much pressure as to completely undo the first bend, and then get to flexing. Basically, all that we're doing is trying to take the tip of the tweezers and give it a 90-degree angle. But you don't want to do the bend all at once. First off, if you do the entire 90-degree bend where the gripping pad meets the rest of the arm, you're going to end up with something like this, and the teeth are so long they're going to destroy your locking tabs. However, even if you do just a 90-degree at the very tips of the tweezers, the metal really can't take the stress, and you're going to end up cracking it severely, and that's going to lead to failures down the line. Plus, the added curvature of the double bend method makes gripping onto a key switch that much easier. Now that we've made our own switch pullers, let's get back to why I'm not the biggest fan of these commercially available switch pullers. The main issue is that these are all super flexible. Which, I mean, it makes sense. These are all basically tweezers, and the metal does need to be flexible for you to close in on the switch. But when I say flexible, I also mean these deflect pretty easily, and you're going to have to bend them back into shape. That's going to compound the issue with the grip you need to use, because sometimes a switch can be pretty stubborn about coming out. And in the case of those stubborn switches, not only do you have to give a death grip in order to actually engage it and possibly pull it out, but during that, the metal is going to be deflecting, causing you to apply even more pressure, and doing a death grip with IC pullers especially means that you're going to end up damaging quite a few switches. Like this Gatoron Silver, which is one of many that I snapped the tabs off of. And the worst part about that is it wasn't the IC puller that did the damage, it was this one, which is purpose made for pulling switches and even has shorter teeth. Those death grips can do it to you. Also, the kind of grip you need to use combined with the death grips can lead to a lot of wrist pain. I got absolutely wrecked halfway through pulling the switches out of a 60% keyboard, and that was kind of surprising due to the fact that one of my hobbies is weaving chainmail. I can sit around for hours making things like this, or even crazier, things like this, without issue. But pulling switches messes me up. And this switch puller really addresses all of those issues. Not only are we moving the grip position from in front of the fulcrum to behind the fulcrum, giving us more of a mechanical advantage, but the metal used in these tweezers is not anywhere near as flexible. Yes, we did bend it into shape during the course of making this switch puller, but it's not going to bend out of shape without either a pair of pliers or applying so much pressure that the switch housing is pretty much going to shatter. Now, enough about why we made this, let's go ahead and show these switch pullers in action. Here I have a pretty extreme example of the tight spaces that you're sometimes going to have to deal with when pulling switches, and as you can see, this switch puller that we just made makes very short work of these socket hot swap style switches. No, this footage is not sped up. Of course, socket style is not the only type of hot swap out there, and sometimes you're going to have to deal with the much more stubborn sleeve style hot swap. And as you can see, this switch puller still does a great job with it. And in fact, it has a couple of additional tricks up its sleeve. In the case of very stubborn switches, you're able to choke up your grip by placing one side of the puller on the clip closest to the switch shaft, and then placing the other arm of the switch puller right behind the LED on the other side of the switch shaft. This grip allows you to apply a lot more force without damaging your switch, and then pull things out. In even more extreme cases, you might need to actually rotate your keyboard 90 degrees and then grab the two sides of the switch that don't have any locking tabs. This will allow you to apply even more force and yank the switch out. As you can see, this puller is pretty dang effective, and after you get used to using it, it's quite comfortable. The only thing that I'd really think about changing when it comes to this is to change up the handles a bit to make it closer to a pair of pliers. But then again, these finger rings do a great job letting you apply force to a switch without having to really apply a strong grip. So I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not that modification would be necessary. And that pretty much covers everything. So like I said earlier in the video, if you want to get the exact set of tweezers that I used in this video, I do have the affiliate links down in the description below. And if not, just keep in mind the parameters that you're looking for when it comes to the tweezers that you're going to be using as your base. Sadly, the most widely available scissor-handled tweezers from Revlon are not going to work for this project. But anyway, on that note, until next time, this is your guy, Cly, signing off.